Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
This is Sherry Cantos.
And we are happy to have you along. Welcome to the show for this weekend.
Yep.
It is retirement.
Right.
No, we are talking about getting ready, how you make it work, how it works. And Sherry's found a statistic that bothered her.
Yes, this is 65% of women who don't know when they will retire say it's because they won't have enough adequate savings versus 35%. So there's a gender gap
Versus 35%.
of men.
Ah.
Of men.
So is that 35%, is that men being overconfident? Women being naturally more protective and concerning? Or do you think there's really something that's going on there?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. I will tell you that women have a challenge at retirement that men don't have. It's getting closer, but y'all still live longer.
Right.
Right? I mean, so, it costs to breathe,
Sure.
whether we like it or not, for food, utilities, prescription, cable, all of that, even if you do nothing. So it is an issue, and we're going to talk about the components of retirement decisions today on the show, and what that means to you, what it means for your family. I get asked questions about taking care of elders. We're gonna talk about some of the things that hit people over 60 with their finances, and Sherry, it's one of the things we're going to talk about. People get worried because so much of our world lives on Social Security, and I'm all about paying up to the piper, right? There's things you can do. I can't take a 65-year-old back in time and make them save money now.
No.
Right? That doesn't do any good. And so politically, I don't necessarily have the answers for Social Security. What I know is when you've got somebody who's already at a minimal income, and you take the minimal income away, then whether it's a church or Medicaid or whatever it is, somebody else has got to step up, and you just move cookies from one jar to another. So we have to figure out a solution. What I'm interested in talking to you folks that are with us on the show today is figuring out the best way for you to be able to maximize your retirement, to understand those 3 phases of finance that you go in. Just as my buddy who flies the big planes, they load the plane, they get it to 30,000 feet, bring me coffee, and then they hopefully land it safely in another location. That's my job and what we do at the Financial Enhancement Group for your retirement. We try to help you figure out the right amount of money to save, to put it in the right places, both from a tax and investment standpoint. We help make sure that your risk tolerance is able to smooth out the ride so that you're able to be there beginning, middle, and end once you've already saved up a large nest egg. And then my favorite is, how do we get the money out without you worrying about your next meal, without you worrying about your next vacation? Mm-hmm. How do we get it out and give the IRS the least amount possible? Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Cantos. We got to take a break. We'll be right back and get into the show.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. The show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
So happy to have you along. Hope you're enjoying this wonderful.
Yeah.
It's June, Sherry. It's June.
Can't believe that.
Almost unimaginable that we
know.
are here already. Anyhow, happy to have you folks along. Hope you have been enjoying a wonderful weekend whenever you're listening to the show, whether it be the weekdays, Monday or Thursday, or the weekends, Saturday twice or Sunday once.
We'll just hit it all.
We're happy to have you.
Yes.
So I got to ask an interesting question. It said, Joe, why is your website Your Life After Work instead of Financial Enhancement Group?
Why is that?
Well, we're 20 years old this year. And the reality is people have a hard time spelling financial. I know you'll find that shocking.
I do.
People have a hard time spelling financial, and they have a hard time spelling enhancement.
Really?
And back in the good old days of the internet, if you didn't type in a word exactly correctly, you wound up going nowhere. Google didn't know how to mean, did you really mean this? Right?
Right.
And somebody already had FEG. They've never done anything with it. But the whole reason I got into this industry, when I started, I grew up with a bunch of very, very educated, loving people who had the electricity turned off more often than once. And I thought, how can somebody have a master's degree and not know how to manage money? And so, my original start to this was that. And as I got into it, there were not a lot of people demographically retiring in the early 90s. I started in 2 weeks before the crash in 1987. But there weren't a lot of people retiring. There were some, but not a lot. And as I started dealing with more and more of the engineers from Guide and from Delco here in Anderson, what I realized is people had done a great job putting money into accounts, but really had no idea about how to get money out of accounts. And my whole focus for the last 20 years of the Financial Enhancement Group, but really my whole 29-year career has really been helping people figure out the best way to use their money and to get it out. And so since people can't spell financial, they can't spell enhancement, they probably would have had group okay.
Yeah.
We went with Your Life After Work. And so
Which
that
makes
is
sense.
really our thing. It's yourlifeafterwork.com is the website. And that's where you can find the information that is out there, including previous radio shows, my newspaper column that I write weekly for the Herald Bulletin. Got a lot of comments that came from that this last week. I wrote about terrorist attacks, and then sadly enough, we had the events that occurred in London.
Yeah.
And people said, "How did you know?" And I go,
Wow.
"Well, I clearly didn't know."
Sure.
What I was trying to do was to teach people the difference in how markets work versus how our minds work, right? So from the perspective of that newspaper article, just to kind of lay it out, I asked people if I could give you an event, if I could take you back in the Wayback Time Machine and tell you what was going to happen, and then let you invest a day ahead of time, how life would have turned out for you. So Sherry, let's go back in the Wayback Time Machine.
Okay.
Back to 1963.
Okay.
And
Before my time.
Before my time. JFK.
Yeah.
Sadly assassinated.
Yes.
If you knew that was going to happen the day before, what would you have done with your investments?
Okay, so things would have crashed right
You
after
would've-
that.
You would have thought.
Right.
Except 6 months later, the market was at a new high. Katrina, the largest natural disaster that's ever occurred in the United States.
Same thing. I would have thought
You
it
would
would
have
have
sold,
crashed.
right?
Yeah.
And it was even quicker than 6 months in this case. But 6 months later, you were at a new high. 9/11.
Really?
Really.
Huh.
And it is hard for people to imagine that, but markets have a mind of their own.
Interesting.
And so if you look out 6 months from there, even if you knew what was going to happen, you can get it wrong. And so I'll pick on me for a second. I was the only person probably on our team that believed that Trump had a chance of winning the presidency. And I said that starting the day that the Brexit vote occurred in the United Kingdom. It was an unpollable event. All of the smart money, all of the people believed that that there was no way that the United Kingdom was going to leave the Euro region, the Euro deal. And the vote came in the other way, and the markets went nuts. I believed that President Trump had a strong possibility of being elected. But I also said if it happened, I thought the markets would turn over, that they would not be accepting of that idea. And I was right for about 8 hours.
8 hours.
Right?
Yeah.
So fortunately, at the Financial Enhancement Group, we don't invest based on what we believe to be true.
Right. Okay.
We don't invest on what we think might happen, another terrorist attack, an interest rate rise, a layoff, an economic number. We invest based on a risk barometer that is a proven system that we've been able to put together. And people go, well, Joe, if it's so great, why don't other people use it? Newsflash, we have $300 million that we manage. Every white paper in the world will tell you that does the studies that when you go above 750 million, you lose what's called alpha, or the ability to help people make solid decisions, because you move the market. With $300 million, we move the market. Wow. We have to buy certain things in certain ways at certain times. We have to register with the SEC because we're considered a large trader.
Wow.
It's why I've committed to the families that we serve at 750 million. We're done. We're not going to take any, doesn't mean we'll quit financial planning, but we're not going to manage any more money internally other than that. And the average mutual fund has 3.2 billion. Now, why do they have 3.2 billion? Because you all continue to put money there and pay them, and they're not going to go away as long as they're rewarded for bad behavior.
Right.
They're going to accept the cash.
Good point.
It is the way that it works. So anyhow, yourlifeafterwork.com is the website. You can find the newspaper column. You can find the other stuff there. Sherry and I are going to spend we're going to finish this segment off. We're going to start with retirement. Somebody asked me, Joe, what is the component? What is that thought process? If I'm thinking about retirement, what do I really have to think through to be able to get it done? Right. So I always, as a strategic planner, I always try to go to the end. What does the end of retirement look like for you, Sherry? What is it you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I want you to be able to walk out of work on that final day and be able to maintain your standard of living to which you become accustomed. Right. Now, what I see are people who have two different versions of that. I have people who say that they're going to buy their last new car while they're working, without thinking about being around for the next 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
Or they're going to go to boxed wine. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or they're going to give up the ESPN sports package. Mm-hmm. Right. They have all of these visions of things that they're going to give up for retirement. And honestly, my friends, it just doesn't work. It leads to anger management. I tell everybody in the office that if you can give up chocolate to lose 40 pounds. You cannot lose 40 pounds and then give up chocolate. That leads to anger management, and hopefully you can understand that. But that's what happens when the retirement concept is, I'll have less later, right? Some people who've never traveled anywhere think that they're going to retire and all of a sudden take up European cruising.
Right? Yeah.
You know, if you didn't save for that, folks, you've got a problem. So we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Sherry and I are going to talk about 10 thoughts that I have of what you need to have in the components of a retirement decision to be able to get yourself prepared and to properly execute what we call your life after work. So you got a question or comment, feel free to shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. And of course, you can always call us at 800-928-4001. Sherry and I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. The show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. So we're talking about the components of a retirement decision, things that you need to consider about retirement as you prepare. So I came up with a list of 10 things. It's not they're not necessarily in order. They are just the things when people say, "Hey Joe, I'm thinking about doing this. What can I do to improve it? What should I be thinking?" Da 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 da. And the first one that I came up with is save more. Now, that may sound very, very obvious to you, but there's a little bit more to that. Obviously, if you're 30 years old, you're hearing the show, yes, save more. That is one way to be able to get it done. But the real key, Sherry, is that what's my job when you retire? What am I supposed to replace?
My standard of living.
Your standard of living, not your income.
Not your income.
So you made $100,000 a year. That is immaterial. What I have to replace
is how you're living.
Is how you live. So if you're used to living on $5,000 a month, I need to figure out the way to help you get to $5,000 a month. So my brother was in Haiti the day after the earthquake. And, we've often talked about how they were singing and praising and just happy people the day after the destruction that occurred there and the death and everything else. And the bottom line is they had nothing the day before, they had nothing the day after, right? When I see people who are really, really sad at retirement, it's because they have less when they retired than what they had before. Right? So saving more does two things. By definition, it obviously gives you more money when you retire. But the second thing that it does is reduces the amount of money that you become accustomed to living on. Right. So it's easier for yours truly to be able to replace your standard of living when you've got more money in an account and when you're used to living on less, right? Yeah. Works out well. Number 2, retire later. Now, one of my best friends is working on doing this right now. He has saved up enough money that some people would tell him, and I'll come back to that in a second, remind me. He saved up enough money that some people would tell him that it's okay to retire. Mm-hmm. It's probably not okay. He's 57 years old. It's probably not okay. However, what I've explained to him is he doesn't need to make the money that he's making now, doing the job that he's doing now, which is very stressful and hard on his body. And in all fairness, he's burnt out. What I need him to do is work another 5 years
at something.
Forget saving $50,000 a year, right? Forget doing that. Just do something to be able to take care of he and his wife, right? To get through the next 5 years. And then I can turn the tap on. And then I will be comfortable to say, yes, for the next 30 years of your life, we can maintain your standard of living based on what we know today, okay?
Right.
Now, here is one of the reasons why I don't sell products. Here's one of the reasons why I've devoted my life to taking care of people who don't want to worry about their money, right? And that's that in the world of sales, when I'm trying to sell a product or when I'm trying to sell something, it's all a transference of confidence. That's the game, right? Either if you're doing this on your own, you've tried to convince you can do it on your own, or you've tried to convince your spouse you can do it on your own, or somebody's tried to convince you that they can do it or this product can do it, right? So imagine yourself, Sherry, you go to the doctor, you got a bellyache, you go to the doctor and the doctor says, Sherry, you're fine. This is going to go away in a week. Take these calcium pills or whatever it is and call me next Tuesday.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and you saw the relief, and you couldn't see it because we're on the radio. But you should have seen the relief in Sherry's face. How did you know? Right?
Yeah.
Now, she feels so much better because I told her everything was going to be
okay. Yeah.
Sherry, did you go get a second opinion?
No,
of course not. You heard what you wanted to hear.
I heard what I wanted to hear.
Now, if I told you, Sherry, you've got 6 months, you need to get your affairs in order.
Then I'd be seeing somebody else.
You'd be getting a second and a third opinion immediately,
right.
wouldn't you? Because nobody wants to hear bad news, folks.
Right.
And this is this is why retirement plans get wrecked. One thing that you can always count on from me, whether you like it or not, is that I will tell you the truth. Do not ask me how you look in those jeans. Right? It's
wait a minute.
This is my job, right? It's my job. So when somebody comes in, even one of my best friends, literally, and says, I cannot take another day, figure it out.
Yes.
Right? I don't care what the guy at the brokerage firm told him. I don't care what the HR person told him at work. I don't care what anybody else told him. I have done this for 29 years of my life. It is the only thing in the world I'm probably good at. I just had the worst golf round of my entire life over the weekend. and there's nothing that I really enjoy doing more than that outside of work, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you the truth. And the bottom line is people will tell you what you want to hear when they're trying to sell things. And that is not what we're about at the Financial Enhancement Group. It can't be what your retirement about. End of soapbox. Number 3, reduce standard of living. Now that's painful.
Yeah.
That is painful. But go back to that premise that I gave you. Give up the chocolate to lose the 40 pounds. Do not lose the 40 pounds and then give up
the
chocolate,
chocolate. Right.
So if you're looking at your situation and your scenario and you're going, okay, all right, we got to work through this. We got to figure out how to make this happen. You can give up the sports package now, right? You can give up the Harley Davidson. I know. That's pointed. But that's what, I did. And God bless you guys that still ride. I just don't like texters. It scares me anymore, if you want to know the truth.
Right.
But you can give up things today. You just can't give them up when you retire. It's not going to work out. It's not going to go well for you and your relationship. So
that's why you do the practice year with your people, right?
Yeah,
You just
so-
get them used to it.
Yeah, and it's a great point, Sherry. So one of the things, when we work with families that are and many times people come to us after they've retired and said, this isn't working quite the way we thought it would work. Right?
Yeah.
But when we've got a family that comes in that's preparing, said, okay, I'm 2 years, I'm 5 years, I'm 10 years away. What do we do? We kind of run them through these questions that we're doing now. But the year before they retire, we try to have that practice year. And so you say, Joe, here's my budget. I'm going to divide it into 2. I will never tell you where to spend money. Not my job. But I will divide it into 2 columns. Fixed expenses, which are going to go on whether you're 60, 70, 80, or 90 years old. You have to eat. The utilities will not go away, right? So fixed expenses probably will rise with inflation. The social expenses, on the other hand, the social expenses are money that you spend enjoying life. And what happens nationally, on a national average, is at age 65, most social spending declines. Now, in my practice, and it's probably because people are a little healthier, had a little more resources, et cetera. They weren't at a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning last night, right? But most of my people slow down at 68. They either can't get away from the grandkids, right? Can't get away from a doctor, or the comfy couch just feels too good.
Right.
And so one of the mistakes that I made, I was taught in CFPville, I'm a certified financial planner. One of the things that I was taught was you take what your budget is, that $5,000 a month, and you inflate it over your life expectancy. Always add 5 years, right? Life expectancy plus 5, so that I figured out how much money you needed to have and then extrapolate back how much money you need to save. That's what they taught us in school. Well, the reality is now, 29 years later, I've got a bunch of 80, 85-year-olds with a whole lot of money and not a lot of spending. Right? They don't want to go see the Grand Canyon anymore. They have no desire to traipse across Europe anymore. And so we accelerate one with inflation. We do the other one with a flat line so that you have less purchasing power each year, but you still have the same amount of money. At 90, you don't care. Trust me, done this a long time. But the bottom line is that first year, you say it takes $5,000 a month. We put $5,000 a month in your account. At the end of the year, if there's money left, you know that it worked.
Yeah.
If there's not money left, you know that it didn't. So we always try to help people have that retirement practice year. So anyhow, Sherry and I are talking about retirement decisions. We've talked about saving more, retire later, reduce standard of living. We've talked about changing jobs but delaying touching the assets for a period of time. We're going to come back. There's more. There are more things that you need to consider, whether we like it or not. You're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com, and you can always call us at 800-928-4001. We'll take a break and be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
And I'm Sherry Contos.
And we are happy to have you along. We're talking about the components of retirement decisions.
Your life after work.
Our website
Yes.
is yourlifeafterwork.com. It's not Financial Enhancement Group. If you type it in, you'll find us. But back in the good old days, as I said on a couple segments ago, Google didn't know how to figure out when you made a spelling mistake. And spelling financial and enhancement is a tough thing, apparently, for people. Every now and then, spell corrector fixes me because I type too quick and get financial wrong. So I can understand. It's easy enough to do. But it's yourlifeafterwork.com. That's what we think it's about. It is our job, our commitment to help people truly understand how their money works and how it gets out. And one of the things I teach in churches a lot, and I'm actually doing this weekend, actually, that you're hearing the show. But we go through about 3 phases of finance, Sherry, in our life. And I'll tell you where this came from. One of the families we take care of flies those big 777s.
Woo.
And a big plane.
Yeah.
Huge responsibility. Yeah. And I made some off-colored statement at some point in time where I said, you guys sit in your seat, you get up and take a leak, and you go back to your seat. You just go to different places.
It's on cruise control.
Oh yeah. And he,
wow.
He was, let's just say, not happy. And, so whether I wanted to hear it or not, I got a 90-minute dissertation over what he did while I was playing on my iPad, listening to my music, drinking my nice warm cup of coffee.
Yes.
And essentially what they do when they're loading the plane is dramatically different than what the crew does at 30,000 feet. After you hear it, you go, well, duh, of course it is, right? And then, and what they do landing the plane, again, is entirely different. You would think it would be somewhat repetitive. Not so, not at all.
Huh.
And so it struck me then that, you forget what you once didn't know, right? I've done this for 29 years of my life. So at 21 years old, I didn't know a lot of things that I do know today at 50 about your money and your finances. But I will tell you this, just as Jim taught me about the 777 and what pilots have to do in a commercial airplane, you're going to go through, and maybe already have been through a couple of, but you are going to go through 3 different phases of finance. The first one, consider it loading the plane, is accumulation. It's when you're saving money. And you've got 2 goals, right? 2 goals. One, you want to save the right percentage of your income. And the second goal is that you want to make sure that you're building tax diversification. That means you've got some money that's in the Roth that's tax-free. You've got some money that is exposed to the tax man every year because that's the best money for gifting and you manipulating the tax code to a degree. And then the third thing is you want some money that's tax-deferred. You really don't want a lot of that, but that is the third bucket, if you will. So eventually, you're going to get to a point in time in your life where what you're saving today still matters, Sherry.
Yeah.
But not as much as what you've already saved and accumulated. And that's when I tell people they're at 30,000 feet, right? And it's the only time, and please hear this message, it is the only time when average return matters. Average only matters if you're there beginning, middle and end.
Yeah.
So if I get to 30,000 feet and it, the plane has a little bit of turbulence, but stays at 30,000 feet, then you can talk about averages all day long. It's why risk tolerance is so important.
Right.
Knowing yourself, understanding your ability to weather the storm in the tech wreck in 2000 or the events of 9/11 and then 2002, ooh, what an ugly year, or the 2008 and the financial crisis that we had at that point in time. As long as you maintained, you're okay. In case you missed it, we're at new record highs in the market, right? As long as you were able to maintain and you were there beginning, middle, and end, average return matters. But it only matters when you're in preservation. Eventually, Jim, me, Sherry, you have to land the plane. And that is when you go through a period of distribution. And I will tell you this, if anybody shows you a printout or talks to you about average return and distribution, you have my permission just to leave, just to go, because they clearly do not understand math. The two most important things, which you hear about from me a lot on this show, the two most important things during distribution are, one, the volatility, the amount of ups and downs. Average return doesn't matter when I've taken a dollar out, because that dollar is no longer there beginning, middle, and end. It's
Right.
gone.
It's
Kaput.
gone.
It's out. So if I have to take a dollar when the market is down, bad things happen. Now,
Right.
that mindset, however, has led people to a lot of inappropriate conclusions.
Such as?
Well, people tend to think of all of their money in one thing. So
Oh,
I've got $1
okay.
million retirement.
Right.
And what we really have to do is think about blocks of money.
Because you could take that dollar from different blocks.
Yes.
Okay.
We need to think about money that we're going to use today and tomorrow, money that we're going to use over the next 5 years, and money that we're going to use the next 10 years or longer.
Right.
So
Right.
really 3 different pots of money. So you hear us talk about models every now and then if you're inside of the office. A model could be growth. A model could be balanced. A model could be hedged appreciation. We've got 7 models. And many times our families, especially in retirement, have multiple models that are at work. Most of us will not spend all of our money before God calls us home, because we don't know the day God's calling.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are probably going to have money left over. That money that's left over would be earmarked in a different type of category than money that you planned on using to pay the electric bill tomorrow, right? But anyhow, land in this plane and distribution, where the first thing that matters is volatility, right? The second that matters, however, is the tax rate you pay on the average dollar you pull
take
out.
out.
And I cannot stress that enough. There is nothing that will separate you from your retirement like the Internal Revenue Service. My friends, I have done this for 29 years. I hope I get to do it for another 29. I love what I do. I can tell you the number of retirements that worked out, and I can tell you the number that failed. And none have failed that we had anything to do with over the market. But we have seen people have to change their standard of living over bad tax decisions. Right? One of the examples that I use when I do workshops for people, and I'll talk about it at the church this weekend. One of the examples is the CPA, who is a family that we take care of. The gentleman came in to see us in 2002. I told him exactly what he needed to do in order to fulfill his retirement objectives based on understanding the tax code. He refused. So here we are 15 years later. The investment part has worked out fine. He still pays us. He's still a good friend. He's still a good family. The CPA, he's still a client. He's still one of the families that we take care of. But the bottom line is he had to change his retirement, his standard of living, not because of bad investment decisions. He had to change them because of bad tax decisions. And what happens with tax planning, and it's why it's so critical, tax planning is not a single 1040. It's not a snapshot. That's how CPAs are trained to think. And nobody wants to pay more for anything, right?
Right.
No, we just don't. You want to pay more for an oil service? No. You want to pay more to do your 1040? No.
No.
You want to pay the IRS more? That's even
No.
another funny word in front of it. No,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Of course you don't. But if you don't pay attention to the tax planning on a journey, on an extended basis, trust me, my friends, retirement is not going to be all that it could be. Even if you have plenty and you say, Joe, I've saved $1 million, $2 million, it's going to be okay. Well, okay, it probably will be okay. Let's make it better. Let's think about your grandkids. Let's think about your church. Let's think about your universities, your communities. If we can keep money, instead of going to Washington, if we can keep money right here, just think about how much better that really is for you. Tax planning, my friends, is very, very important, not just asset management when it comes to distribution and landing the plane. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot me an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com or give us a call at 800-928-4001. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. You know, I get wound up when I start talking about retirement, Sherry.
I can tell that.
It's kind of like going to the gym,
Uh-huh.
and I can't call myself a gym rat anymore. But between football and wrestling and years, I know what people are supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. And
Yeah.
when you see somebody doing something wrong in a gym, it just hurts, right? It's I want to go over and be the coach and try to help them.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens with the way I look at the retirement
I
planning.
bet when you see somebody really messing up. I mean,
people will ask a quick question, but they don't want to. It's not even that they necessarily don't want to pay for it, right? They just want to do it on their own, and it's kind of like you're going to pull a muscle, right?
Yeah.
You're not developing what you think you're developing by doing that, and that's
Right.
what happens so often in the world of finance. And anyhow, this is what we like to call the quickest hour in radio.
It really
for
seems
Sherry
like
and I.
it.
But
Man.
I've got 3 other topics that I wanted to hit. I really wanted to finish and talk more about the retirement stuff. Sherry actually said, because I'm not allowed to know what Sherry talks about in the 5th segment. For those of you on WIBC, you don't get to hear that part of the program. So you can go to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com or iTunes, Consider This with Big Joe Clark.
Yes.
And you can hear the show, the 5th segment that way.
Yep.
But Sherry was not allowed to tell me. I don't want to know. She
Yeah.
brings in a topic. So, when I showed her we were going to talk about retirement today, she kind of threw the paper down in disgust.
Yes.
and
Oh,
said,
come
"What?"
on. It wasn't discussed.
Well, it was
Frustration. Maybe.
there you go. So we're going to turn the channel to another question that I got, and I can't state the question without making it obvious who it is. But it was really the question. The broad base of it is what do older people struggle with that are over 60 that they need to be aware of financially?
Okay.
And to a large degree, folks, I'll tell you up to the beginning that you cannot predict the future. There's some things we know. We will all die, right? We all know that. Almost everybody listening to this show will lose a spouse at some point in time. Not a good thing, but it's something that we've got to be prepared for. So what are the 5 most common? And I put that into the Google browser, and it brought up an article from the Washington Post. Mm-hmm. And so they said, number 1, many struggle with debt. Now that's true. Now I don't see a lot of the people who struggle with that. Obviously, we're wealth managers.
Yeah.
So the people who come here tend to have some resources saved up.
Their
but
debt's probably useful debt.
if they have any at all.
Right.
Most people that we take care of have already paid their houses off, whether they should have or not.
Right.
It depends on what you believe your investment return is going to be, what your tax return looks like.
Yep.
There's a combination of issues that need to go in there. But struggling with that is a real thing. People have a fear of running out of money, and I can certainly understand that. And if you have a loved one who is got debt, who is retired, or planning on retiring, you can have a conversation with them, but it's really hard to change people's habits, to a large degree. You just have to help negotiate interest rates down, things like that, where you have an opportunity to do it. Number 2, they say they face complications with reverse mortgages. I would give an amen to that. I will tell you, when reverse mortgages first came out, I thought they were dirty little things, and they were sold by people who were selling things, right? And in my opinion, trying to make a commission. I think the reverse mortgage rules and situations and oversight have changed enough that it is a worthwhile part of some financial strategies. I don't expect either of my 2 kids to want the house that Barb and I live in. It'll be paid off, unless I refinance it again, because again, interest rates and tax rate, it'll be paid off. And now I've got an asset that's just sitting there doing nothing that my kids won't want when I'm gone. So it's possible under the rules that we know of today that I may very well exercise a reverse mortgage depending on what the rules are there.
Sure.
They are vastly and dramatically different than where they were 15 years ago. And Sherry, as you know, I believe people put money into tax-deferred programs, 401ks and IRAs today, because of decisions that were made in 1980, either by themselves or their parents or their employers. Because in 1980, I think it was a really, really good idea.
So by that, you mean the scenario that was in place in 1980.
Right.
Yeah.
Where the top tax rate was 70%. Right.
Yeah, right.
But it changed when Reagan changed the tax code in 1986. So 31 years ago, right? The rules have changed, and I believe many people defer money that flat simply shouldn't be deferring money. But a decision was made, and so we go upon that same path because most people don't spend 3 days in Kansas City with me reading private letter rulings with 300 other tax geeks.
Thank
right?
goodness. Yes.
That
sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun. You wouldn't believe the things that we learned.
Okay, fine.
The things that you don't know, and it's like, holy
That's
cow.
why we pay
right?
you to do
That's
this
why
job.
you pay. And I enjoy it, and it's my love in life. So there we go. But things change, and the things that you're familiar with, those of you that are listening to the show, the things that you do, whether it be gardening or whether it be IT stuff or computers or my pharmacists or my engineers, when things change and you love it, you catch on to that change.
Right.
When it's a tertiary issue, something that's important to you, your health or your money, right? You come up with basic conclusions like liver and onions are good for you, right?
Yes.
And
so
then
you
finally you find out that they're not, and it's like, we don't have to eat those anymore, right? But
Yeah.
there's things that people do in their financial lives that they don't understand really aren't in their best interest, yet they continue to do it. I think reverse mortgages might be one of those things that we need to relook at, rethink about when people are older.
Okay.
The third one, they say some have difficulty recovering from scams or identity theft. And I would concur with that. A couple of years ago, somebody decided to borrow my Social Security number and file a tax return in my name. The IRS sent a nice regular mail letter saying, Mr. Clark, by the way, the IRS never calls. Anybody who calls that says they're from the IRS, they're not.
They're not.
Regular mail.
Interesting.
And when I called back, I kid you not, I don't believe Barb would have been able to have ever talked to them. The questions that they ask, when was your second mortgage or your mortgage before this one? What bank was it with? What was the payment? Things that I didn't even know that the IRS knew. But it was a 15-minute question and answer series. And if I didn't have the 2015 return in front of me at that, or 14 return in front of me at that time, and know everything I knew about the finances, it's tough. It's tough getting around that. The next one, there's confusion over banking products and fees. How true. People believe because they've been going to a bank forever that they can just go in and talk to the bank broker. Please don't buy anything, an investment product at a bank. They are selling things. They're not registered investment advisors. They're not fiduciaries. Insurance, 401ks, those kind of things, guys, I'm telling you, you need a professional. I use the banks. I like the banks. The bankers are my friends. That is different than putting somebody in there where you're relying on the confidence of that banking relationship is not the right answer in my mind. And there's challenges with managing finances after the death of a spouse. That is so true, especially if you're the one who's gone and you're the one who took care of the money. We have many families who come in and say, listen, I really want to do this on my own, but I'm worried if something happens to me,
right.
what happens to my spouse?
Right, exactly.
And we've got programs for that to try to help people get stuff in order where they're still able to do it today, but there's somebody who's able to take care of them in the future, and the relationships are already established when that time should happen to come. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. If you are friends on WIBC, very, very happy to have you every Saturday morning. You're out now, so don't forget. You can go to iTunes, Consider This with Big Joe Clark.
Don't forget.
Or yourlifeafterwork.com to hear the next and last segment of the show. Sherry and I will take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Giggles.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to call you. Giggles.
Yeah, well, I get nervous about this section.
Well, don't get nervous.
I do, because I try to stump you. I never do. And today we were on the same wavelength. Our brains were
Now,
like in.
if you brought anything in about retirement, the probability of
Of a-
stumping
yeah,
me
yeah,
is
yeah.
not like
Well,
right.
I
Because
know. Yes.
And what I mean by that, and let me be very, very clear, there are things that I do not know. I mean, there are things that I don't know. I don't know what they are, but there are things that I don't know.
That's true. So it might happen on one.
And so what I try to tell people who ask, it's like, Joe, why in the world should I pay you to take care of my resources? I've saved $1 million. I've done it on my own. It's all worked out. Why should I pay you? I go, but here's why, Sherry.
Yes, tell me.
Things are going to happen. And I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know what you don't know.
I don't.
But when things happen that we didn't know were going to happen, do you want to rely on what I don't know or what you don't know?
I'd rather, if it's financial, rely on what you don't know.
Yeah. And that's, and I mean, when you really have to stop and think about it. We
Right,
live in
yeah.
a changing world, changing tax code, changing global economy, changing, surprises that are there. There are going to be things that surprise me, things that I don't know. I go to tax school for 3 days twice a year, to try to learn and continue to develop and,
Right.
plot with my friends and, ways we're going to help our families that we serve. But there's just simply put things that we don't know. The challenge is there's things that other people don't know, and ignorance is not bliss. With retirement, you get one shot.
Right. It's not benign either.
No, it's not.
So.
You get one shot at this,
Right.
folks. And it's I used to have a cooking show where I would cook and teach people about about food and finance simultaneously. And if I mess something up in the kitchen, I can throw it away and order pizza.
Yes.
You get one shot at retirement.
Right.
Don't blow it.
Wow.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So here's our topic. I ran across this article, and it was from Insured Retirement Institute, Boomer Expectations for Retirement in 2017. The top 10 retirement issues that boomers face.
Okay.
Top 10. Number 10, and we've already touched on this today, they're not saving enough. They're not doing well in saving. 54% of boomers have retirement savings, and that percentage has fallen for the past 4 years. Only 54% have retirement savings across the board. Now, then we're talking about your people. We're talking about in general.
And the percentage has fallen?
Yeah, for the past 4 years. I mean, individually, like more people are, let me say, people who added to their retirement is up, but only marginally.
There we go.
The overall percentage has fallen.
And I will buy that. Now, so part of this and part of this numerical thing that you hear, first of all, what the rest of the world doesn't do is not doesn't impact your household directly.
Exactly.
What it does do, however, is impact the way that our economy is able to function. So it does matter, but some of these studies that you'll see, Sherry, is that people didn't save enough money. I will remind you that most of the pension funds in the United States are underfunded. And a big part of that came because people's life expectancy had changed.
Right, exactly.
Right? And so many times people, that were born in the 30s and 40s saved money for retirement based on what they were told to save. And now they don't have enough because they're living longer than what they anticipated.
Yep. Okay, number 9. Boomers haven't made realistic contingency plans for retirement. By that, they mean the biggest fallback is still Social Security in their minds.
Yeah. It's Social Security is still over half of the income for almost 90% of people who retire.
Yeah.
And it's 100% for probably 60%.
49% they'll go back to work.
Yeah.
Say they'll go
But that's true in that's true here as well. People, it's the retirement sounds glorious,
Yeah, but then it's
right?
not so
And,
much.
2 weeks after watching Gilligan's Island and a little bit of Mayberry, you're it's kind of like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. What am I going to do today?
And so many of our families either volunteer or consult or go to the SBA or
Right.
they find something to do. It just
Exactly.
happens.
Okay, number 8, they have regrets about how they prepared for retirement. That's kind of a mental thing. So just basically thinking, gosh, I didn't do this well, and now here I am. Number 7, they're
It
not.
does it's very similar to it being June today.
Yeah.
Retirement does sneak up on you. I
Yeah,
mean, how in
yeah.
the world did I get to be 50?
I know. Trust me,
I do
I get
not
it.
get this.
Yeah. They're not confident about how ready they are to retirement. So it's just a confidence level in it.
And there's good reasons for that. When two people reach age 60, there is a 90% probability if they're in good health, not great health, if they're in good health. We're not talking about hikers and bikers and, if two people reach age 60 in reasonable health, there's a 90% chance one of them makes it to 90. That is 30 years.
Wow.
So
Wow,
my
wow.
whole career has been 29 years, right? So think about the crash in 87. Think about the tech wreck in 2000, 9/11, the financial crisis in 08, housing prices going nuts between 03
30 years
and 06.
covers a lot of time.
30 years is a lot of, this hair didn't change color
Overnight.
right?
Yeah.
It is a different world, and there's reasons not to be confident, but we create strategies to add to that confidence,
Right.
to provide clarity in a world of complexity.
So yeah, the article said that lots of boomers are going to find that their total income from Social Security, pension, and savings won't cover their basic living expenses. So they just are concerned about that, haven't thought about that, haven't prepared for that. And again, we've already said this, they think Social Security will be their main source of income in retirement. That's because you don't know what's going to happen with Social Security and legislation. That's an issue, right?
It is an issue. I will tell you, anybody who's over 60, right now, I would not worry about their Social Security. I would almost go to anybody who's 55 to 58 even. What is going to happen, what should happen, is we took full retirement age from 66 to 67,
Right.
based on when you're born. It probably needs to get closer to 70. When Social Security first came out, none of it was taxable. Today, based on your income, up to 85% of it's taxable. That will probably go to 100%.
Wow.
That's one. We didn't used to have a cost of living allowance. Granted, they haven't been great the last 2 years, but we added the cost of living allowance in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. There's a chance that may go away again. But it is the problem is it's a large part of people's retirement,
Right.
or a
big
big
percentage.
swath
Yep,
of the United
yep,
States.
It's true.
And so you make many changes. One, politically, that's not feasible in the world that we live in. But number two, you'll end up with a lot of families that aren't able to eat.
Yeah,
And,
right, exactly.
so it's a touchy situation.
Yeah. Okay, so the top 2 things that boomers are concerned about, and we talk about this all the time. One, they don't know how much they'll need in retirement, which is we've already mentioned why we do the practice year. And that's number 2. Number 1 is they still don't know when they'll be able to retire. So that's the other thing that you deal with your clients. I mean, I'm wondering if Joe Average Public can figure those 2 things out.
Well, I think you can figure out with what you know, you can do it. I mean, people will spitball it and say, I think I can make it on $3,000 or $4,000 a month, or
Right.
$2,000 a month. There's some people who can, but in many cases you can't. And the bottom line is retirement is made up of a period of a mental decision of I'm done with doing what I'm doing today, right? Or physically I just can't do it anymore. But it's also the financial decision of where it has to be. And most people are resourceful. They figure out how to get by with less if they have to. I just don't want people to have to get by with less.
Right. Yeah.
I
know.
want you to think about this, prepare for this, to be able to replace that standard of living. When we have our family updates, once a year when you come in for the update, we check on the budget stuff to make sure that everybody's doing okay, staying on the right page, keeping things in line, so that retirement stays as a reality as opposed to a hope.
Right.
So,
Now, this tends to hit women
You're
more.
listening to Consider This, my friends. I hope you're having an outstanding day. We got to take a break. Sherry and I will be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Fastest hour in radio. I hope you guys had enjoyed the show today. It's really inspired by the families that we're able to serve, the questions that come. I have people ask me all the time, Joe, why don't you have, if you're the 10th caller, you can get this, or call in for the free report. Listen, guys,
Gimmick.
I manage money for a living, and we take care of people who don't want to worry about it. Doesn't mean you don't care about it.
Yes.
Just means you don't want to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do the show, and yes, I hope you call in, and yes, I hope that we get to meet and that you're one of the families that we can take care of, because I really believe what we provide for people is a very meaningful benefit and worthwhile, and it matters to me. The 24 people that are on our team at the Financial Enhancement Group are a vast difference in age, of economics, of political beliefs. There's two things that we believe in very, very, very much. And if you listen to the show for a long time, one of them is our faith. But the second thing is that we take care of the families. We really care about the people. So when I do the show, I want to teach you everything that I possibly can so that you don't hurt yourself. I know not all of you are coming in. Some of you still want to do this on your own, and that's okay. It's not the choice that I would make, but it's okay. But I'm not going to say, if you're the 10th caller, you get the free report, or, if you're call in to get this. That's not what I'm about. It's not the culture of the Financial Enhancement Group. I'm going to do my best to give you meaningful ideas, things that you should consider to try to make your financial life better. Hopefully, at some point in time, there's going to be something that you hear that says, hey, we need to give the Financial Enhancement Group a call. And when you do, we'll be ready to go. 800-928-4001. And you can always email us, considerthis@yourlifeafterwork.com. Sherry, it is June.
I know. I can't believe it.
Time is fleeting.
Flying.
And I can't stress enough how quickly, as a parent that worked with two daughters, and I can't, the 29 years of my career, I can't tell you how quickly that time has flown by. And folks, if you're younger, you need to be working on retirement thoughts and strategies now. The majority of the people that walk through our doors are probably over 50, but we're seeing more and more people that are 40, 35. I've got younger planners designed for that. We're more than happy to help you or your family. You've been listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. Have a wonderful week, my friends.
Thanks for listening to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001 or via email at bigjoe@yourlifeafterwork.com. The Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, is based at 429 East 14th Street, Anderson, Indiana, 46016. Be sure to check out their website for more information at yourlifeafterwork.com. Have a great